You're stuck in a loop and you don't even know it. Every January, every Monday, every fresh start, you tell yourself this time will be different. You set the goal, you feel the motivation, you take action for 3 days, maybe 3 weeks if you're lucky, and then you quit. Again. And you think it's because you're lazy, because you lack willpower, because you're fundamentally broken. But here's the truth. You're quitting for the exact same reason every single time, and no one's ever explained it to you. It's not your fault. It's not even about discipline. It's about something deeper, something your brain is doing behind the scenes that's sabotaging you before you even realize the game has started. Now, I know what you're probably thinking right now. You're thinking, Tony, I've heard this before. I know I quit too easily. I know I need to be more consistent. Just tell me how to be more disciplined. But that's exactly the problem. That's exactly why you're stuck in this loop. Because here's what nobody tells you about quitting. It's not random. It's not because you're weak or broken or lack some magical discipline gene that other people have. You quit for very specific, predictable, neuroscience-backed reasons that have nothing to do with your character and everything to do with how your brain is wired to protect you from perceived danger. This video is going to show you the real reason you can't stay consistent. And it's not what every productivity guru has told you. They sell you systems and schedules and accountability partners, and none of it works long-term because they're treating the symptom, not the disease. They're giving you better band-aids, when what you actually need is to understand why you keep getting cut in the first place. What you're about to learn will fundamentally change how you see yourself. You'll discover why your brain interprets your goals as threats, why motivation always fades, why willpower is a trap, and why the harder you try to force consistency, the faster you burn out. More importantly, you'll learn how to work with your nervous system instead of against it, how to make consistency feel natural, sustainable, even inevitable. By the end of this conversation, you'll understand that you're not a quitter. You're someone whose survival mechanisms have been misfiring. You're not lazy. You're exhausted from fighting your own biology. And once you stop fighting and start flowing, once you learn to build consistency through safety rather than force, everything changes. Not because you became a different person, but because you finally learned how to work with the person you already are. So let me tell you a story. This one's personal. About 7 years ago, I decided I was going to write a book. Not just any book, the book. The one that would finally prove I had something valuable to say. I told everyone about it. I bought the perfect notebook. I set up the perfect writing space. I woke up at 5 a.m. every day with this fire inside me. And for the first week, it was incredible. I was writing 3,000 words a day. I was in flow. I was becoming the writer I always knew I could be. Week 2, still good. Maybe 2,500 words a day. Still consistent, still showing up. But something was starting to shift. The writing was getting harder. The blank page was starting to feel less like an invitation and more like an interrogation. But I pushed through. Because that's what disciplined people do, right? They push through. Week 3, I'm down to 1,000 words a day, and they're not good words. They're forced words, strained words. I'm sitting at that desk, and my body feels tense, my jaw is clenched. There's this voice in my head that's getting louder every day saying, who do you think you are? Who's going to read this? You're not a real writer. You're just pretending. And I'm fighting that voice. I'm trying to muscle through it. Because I'm Tony. I don't quit. I'm disciplined. I'm consistent. Week 4, I write 200 words. Week 5, I open the document and just stare at it. Week 6, I don't even open my laptop. And by week 7, it's over. The book is dead. The dream is dead. And I'm sitting there in this shame spiral thinking, I guess I'm just not cut out to be a writer. I guess I don't have what it takes. I guess all those voices in my head were right. And for months, that's the story I told myself, that I was a quitter, that I lacked discipline, that I'd failed another test of my character. But I was wrong. I wasn't a quitter. I was someone whose nervous system had correctly identified that the way I was pursuing that goal was unsustainable and dangerous. Let me explain what was actually happening inside my brain and body during those 7 weeks. Imagine your comfort zone is a rubber band. And that book, that goal, that vision of who I wanted to become, that was outside the rubber band, way outside. And every single day I sat down to write, I was stretching that rubber band further and further from its natural state. At first, that stretch felt exhilarating. Look how far I can go. Look how much I'm growing. But here's what I didn't understand. Rubber bands have tension. The further you stretch them, the more force is pulling them back to their original shape. And I wasn't just stretching the rubber band, I was stretching it violently. 5 a.m. wake-ups when my body wanted to sleep until 7. 3,000 words a day when I'd never written consistently before. Forcing myself to sit at that desk even when every cell in my body was screaming for a break. I thought I was building discipline, but what I was actually doing was creating massive internal tension. And my nervous system, whose job is to keep me alive and safe, was monitoring that tension. And at some point, my nervous system made a decision. This is too much. This is dangerous. We need to return to safety. And the only way to return to safety was to stop stretching, to let the rubber band snap back, to quit. And here's the thing, I didn't consciously decide to quit. It wasn't a rational choice. It was a survival response. My brain perceived the sustained discomfort, the identity conflict of trying to become someone I'd never been, the emotional vulnerability of putting myself out there, and it interpreted all of that as danger. Not metaphorical danger, actual, biological, nervous system level danger. And when your brain perceives danger, it doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your potential. It doesn't care about the person you're trying to become. It just cares about getting you back to safety as fast as possible. So I didn't quit because I was weak. I quit because my survival system was stronger than my willpower. And no amount of discipline, no amount of motivation, no amount of trying harder was ever going to overcome that, because you can't willpower your way past a threat response. It's like trying to hold your breath forever. Eventually, your body overrides your conscious choice and forces you to breathe. That's what was happening with my book. My conscious mind wanted to write, but my subconscious mind had identified writing as a threat. And the subconscious always wins.
Now, let me tell you another story. This one's not about me. It's a parable. There are two people who decide to build a house. The first builder is incredibly motivated, inspired, excited. He draws these elaborate blueprints. He buys the best materials. He works 18-hour days. His house is going up fast. Everyone who walks by is impressed. Look at him go. Look at that dedication. Look at that work ethic. But by week 3, he's exhausted. His body is breaking down. His back hurts. His hands are blistered. He's not sleeping. He's not eating properly. And one day, he just doesn't show up to the site. The house sits there, half finished, and he tells himself, and everyone who asks, I guess I'm just not cut out for construction. The second builder moves slowly, almost frustratingly slowly. Some days, he only lays 5 bricks. Some days, he shows up for 30 minutes and leaves. Some days, he doesn't show up at all. And when he misses a day, he doesn't spiral. He doesn't beat himself up. He doesn't declare the whole project a failure. He just comes back the next day and lays 5 more bricks. People walk by and they're not impressed. They say, at this rate, it'll take him forever. They say, he's not serious. He's not committed. But 6 months later, his house is finished, complete, sturdy, beautiful. Not because he worked harder, not because he was more disciplined, but because he worked within his capacity, because he built sustainability into the system. The first builder was relying on motivation, a finite emotional resource that burns hot and fast and always runs out. The second builder was relying on structure, a repeatable, low-friction system that didn't require him to feel inspired to show up. Motivation gets you started. Systems keep you going. And most people quit because they're trying to build Rome in a day with nothing but willpower and enthusiasm. They go all in. They make massive changes overnight. They wake up one Monday and decide they're going to completely transform their life. And it works for about 12 days. And then the motivation evaporates, the willpower depletes, the enthusiasm crashes, and they quit. And they think they quit because they're not strong enough. But they quit because they were trying to sustain intensity instead of building capacity. Here's what I need you to understand. Consistency is not about intensity. It's about sustainability. It's not about how much you can do when you're motivated. It's about what you can maintain when you're not. And the path to sustainable consistency isn't through force. It's through designing a system so simple, so low friction, so aligned with who you actually are that it feels easier to do it than not to do it. Now let me show you something even deeper, something most people never figure out. Imagine you can meet your future self, the version of you who finally became consistent, who finally stopped quitting, who finally built the life you've been dreaming about. And you ask them, what changed? How did you finally stop quitting? What was the breakthrough? And they look at you with this compassion in their eyes, and they say something you don't expect. They say, I stopped trying to force myself to be disciplined. Instead, I became someone for whom this behavior felt natural. And you're confused. What does that mean? And they explain, consistency isn't something you do. It's someone you become. And you can't become someone new while still holding on to your old identity. See, right now you have an identity, a story about who you are, and that story is running everything. You say, I want to be a runner, but your identity is, I'm not athletic. You say, I want to be a writer, but your identity is, I'm not creative. You say, I want to be disciplined, but your identity is, I'm lazy. I'm a procrastinator. I'm someone who starts things but never finishes them. And every time you take action that contradicts your identity, your brain experiences something called cognitive dissonance. It's a painful psychological conflict between what you're doing and who you believe you are. And your brain hates dissonance. It will do anything to resolve it. And the easiest way to resolve it? Make your actions match your identity, which means quit. Stop doing the thing that contradicts who you believe you are. So you don't quit because you're weak. You quit because you're trying to act like someone you don't believe you are yet. And your brain forces you to stop so your behavior realigns with your self-concept. This is why affirmations don't work. This is why motivation doesn't work. This is why discipline doesn't work. Because none of those things change your identity. They're all trying to overwrite it. And your identity always wins. So the real question isn't how do I force myself to be consistent? The real question is who do I need to become for this behavior to feel natural? And how do I start becoming that person? And the answer is simpler than you think. You become that person through tiny, repeated identity-affirming moments. Not by doing the big thing, by doing the smallest version of the thing, over and over, until your brain starts to believe this is who we are now. Let me explain what's actually happening in your brain when you quit. Your brain has one job: keep you alive. Not happy, not successful, not fulfilled, just alive. And from your brain's perspective, change is dangerous. New behaviors mean unpredictable outcomes. Unpredictable outcomes mean potential threats. So when you start a new habit, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, starts monitoring for danger. And anything uncomfortable, physical discomfort, emotional vulnerability, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of success, gets interpreted as a threat. Your brain doesn't know the difference between this workout is hard and you're being chased by a predator. It just knows discomfort equals danger. And when your brain perceives danger, it activates your survival response: fight, flight, or freeze. Quitting is flight. It's your nervous system trying to save your life from a threat that doesn't actually exist. This is why you quit right when things start to get uncomfortable. Not because you're weak, but because your brain thinks you're in danger. And it's pulling you back to safety, back to the familiar, back to the comfort zone, even if that comfort zone is slowly killing you. Now, here's what nobody tells you about motivation. Motivation is not a personality trait. It's an emotion. And like all emotions, it's temporary. It comes and goes like waves. Relying on motivation to build consistency is like relying on excitement to sustain a marriage. It works great in the honeymoon phase when everything is new and thrilling. But when the excitement fades, and it always fades, you need something deeper. You need commitment. You need structure. You need systems that work even when you don't feel like it. Most people quit the moment motivation disappears because they think the disappearance of motivation means they're not supposed to continue. They think it means the goal isn't right for them. They think they're not cut out for this. But motivation determines not worthiness. It's just your brain's dopamine response to novelty. And novelty always wears off. Always. That new gym membership, that new project, that new relationship, the novelty fades. And when it does, if you're relying on motivation to keep you going, you quit every single time.
And then there's the all or nothing trap. This one destroys so many people. Here's how it works. You start strong, you go all in, you work out 7 days a week, you write 2 hours every morning, you completely overhaul your diet, you meditate, journal, read, do cold plunges, everything at once. And it feels amazing for about 12 days. You're a productivity machine. You're finally becoming the person you always knew you could be. And then life happens. You get sick. You have a bad day. Something comes up and you miss 1 day. And instead of just resuming the next day, you spiral. You think, already broke the streak. I ruined it. What's the point of continuing now? I'll just start over next Monday or next month or next year. And you quit entirely. This is the all or nothing trap. Your brain sees consistency as perfection. One deviation equals total failure. But that's not how sustainable change works. Consistency isn't perfection. It's resilience. It's the ability to miss a day and come back without drama, without shame, without restarting from zero. It's understanding that one missed workout doesn't erase the 10 you did. One unhealthy meal doesn't undo weeks of eating well. One day of not writing doesn't mean you're not a writer. But most people can't do this because they've tied their identity and their worthiness to their streak. And when the streak breaks, their identity breaks with it. And the only way to repair the identity is to quit and pretend they never started. Because quitting lets them say, I stopped, not I failed. It protects the ego, but it destroys the dream. Here's the paradox nobody talks about. Your brain quits to keep you safe, but staying in your comfort zone is the most dangerous thing you can do, because comfort equals stagnation. Stagnation equals irrelevance. Irrelevance equals obsolescence. The greatest threat to your survival isn't failure. It's refusing to grow. It's staying the same in a world that's constantly changing. But your nervous system doesn't know that. Your nervous system just knows new equals scary, old equals safe. So it will sabotage every attempt you make to grow if you don't consciously teach it that growth is safe, that discomfort isn't danger, that consistency is protection, not a threat. And you do that through repeated exposure. Small, safe doses of discomfort that prove to your nervous system, we're okay. We can handle this. This isn't going to kill us. In fact, this is making us stronger. You're literally rewiring your threat detection system, teaching your amygdala that this new behavior, this new identity, this new version of you, it's safe, it's sustainable, it's who we are now. So let me give you the exact practices that will rewire your relationship with consistency. Not theory, tools. Not someday, today. First practice, the minimum viable habit. Stop setting ambitious goals. Stop trying to be impressive. Instead, identify the smallest possible version of the behavior that still counts. Not work out for an hour, put on workout clothes. Not write 1,000 words, write 1 sentence. Not meditate for 20 minutes, take 3 conscious breaths. Make it so small it feels almost silly, almost embarrassing, because the goal isn't the outcome. The goal is the repetition. You're training your brain that this behavior is safe, sustainable, and part of who you are. You're not trying to achieve something. You're trying to become someone. And you become someone through repeated action, not heroic effort. Once the tiny version becomes automatic, once it feels weird not to do it, then you can scale up. But most people quit because they start too big and burn out before the behavior becomes part of their identity. Start small, stay consistent, build from there. Second practice, the identity statement. Write down one identity statement that aligns with your goal. Not, I want to be healthy. I am someone who takes care of my body. Not, I want to be successful. I am someone who shows up for my goals. Not, I want to be disciplined. I am someone who keeps promises to myself. Read this statement every morning, not as an affirmation, as a reminder, as a lens through which to make decisions. Throughout the day, ask, what would someone with this identity do right now? And do that. You're not faking it till you make it. You're becoming it through repeated micro choices that slowly shift your self-concept from who you were to who you're becoming. Third practice, and this is the most important one, the compassionate return. When you miss a day, and you will miss a day, don't spiral. Don't shame yourself. Don't start over. Just return. No drama,
No self-flagellation, just, I missed yesterday, I'm back today. Treat yourself the way you treat a friend who stumbled, with gentleness, with encouragement, with the understanding that perfection was never the goal. Resilience was. The ability to return after deviation is what separates people who build lasting change from people who quit forever. Build the skill of compassionate return, and you become unquittable. So here's what we've been. You came into this video probably feeling frustrated with yourself, maybe even disgusted, another goal abandoned, another proof that you're just not consistent, that you're just not disciplined enough, that you don't have what it takes. And what I hope you're walking away with is this: you were never broken. You were just misunderstanding the game. Quitting isn't a character flaw, it's a nervous system response to perceived danger. Motivation isn't a prerequisite for consistency. It's a temporary emotion that gets you started but can't sustain you. Willpower isn't a virtue. It's a limited resource that depletes with use. And forcing yourself to be disciplined through shame and punishment doesn't create lasting change. It creates burnout, resentment, and eventual collapse. The real path to consistency isn't through force. It's through safety, through building systems so sustainable they feel effortless, through aligning your actions with an identity that makes those actions feel natural, through teaching your brain slowly and gently that growth isn't a threat, it's your birthright. You don't need to become more disciplined. You need to become more compassionate. You don't need to try harder. You need to try smarter. You don't need to fix yourself. You were never broken. Here's your mantra. Say it with me. I am not a quitter. I am someone learning to work with my wiring, not against it. Say it again. Consistency isn't perfection. It's returning, and I always return. One more time. I am becoming someone for whom this behavior is natural, one small choice at a time. You don't need to overhaul your entire life tomorrow. You don't need to be perfect starting Monday. You just need to do the smallest version of the thing today. And then tomorrow, do it again. And the day after, do it again. And on the day you miss, because you will miss a day, you return without shame, without restarting, without drama. You just return. That's it. That's the secret. Small, repeated identity-affirming actions sustained by compassion and structure instead of motivation and willpower. That's how you finally become consistent. Not by becoming someone you're not, but by becoming more fully who you already are. And if this landed for you, if something shifted, if you felt that click of recognition, let me know. Hit the like button as a signal to yourself, I'm done quitting. I'm ready to build something that lasts. Drop a comment and tell me what your minimum viable habit is going to be. Make it public, make it real, and subscribe if you want to keep going deeper into these conversations, because this is what I do. I help people stop fighting themselves and start working with themselves. You've got this. Not because you're suddenly going to become superhuman, but because you're finally going to become consistent. And consistent humans change the world, one tiny choice at a time. Now go. Start small, stay kind, and become unquittable.